everyone. Good morning and welcome to today's The Hindu News Analysis. In today's news analysis, we'll be discussing about 8 important news articles covered in the Hindu newspaper today. Coming to the first article, Trump targets ICC with sanctions over Afghanistan war crimes case. So ICC is the International Criminal Court. So the news article is US President Donald Trump on Thursday issued an executive order authorizing sanctions against individuals involved in an International Criminal Court investigation into whether US forces committed war crimes in Afghanistan. So the executive order has said to block assets in the US of these ICC employees involved in the investigation. Also, the members of the ICC who are involved in the investigation, they will be blocked entry into the US also. So this is another instance of United States protesting against an international organization involved in actions against the US. So, coming to the ICC was set up to prosecute war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity. It has jurisdiction only if a member state is unable or unwilling to prosecute the atrocities by itself. That means that it is like ICC acts as a complement of the national judicial system. For example, assume there is a member country, and if the judiciary of the member country fails to take action against any crimes, then only the ICC can come into picture. So that is why it is called, it is ICC's complement with the national judicial system. Also, ICC was established in 2002 and the headquarters is Hague in Netherlands. So I'll be telling about some other prelims facts related to ICC. ICC, so as we have already told, it has the jurisdiction to prosecute international crimes. It complements the national judicial system. Also, it can only take action against the crimes committed within the member states. That is, it doesn't have universal jurisdiction. It cannot take action against crimes happening anywhere in the world. It can only take action only if a member country, if the crime is committed in a member state, or if the crime is referred to it by the United Nations Security Council, that is UNSC. So these are the only two ways how ICC can take investigation against a case. Now, coming to India's membership, India has neither signed nor ratified the Rome Statute. Rome Statute is the agreement which is related to this ICC. So, if any country has to be a member of ICC, then they have to sign and ratify the Rome Statute. So, India has neither signed nor ratified the Rome Statute. So, India is not a member of the International Criminal Court. So these are the main points which we have to study for prelims perspective related to ICC. Also, from the mains perspective, you can add this US issue with ICC among other list where US has issues with other international organizations. For example, recently US had issues with WHO, right? So there was fund freezing, there was threat to withdraw from WHO. So all those stuffs were happening. So earlier also US had issues with other international institutions like UNESCO and all. So you can just note this along with those notes you have already made. Coming to the next news article, Harvard study full of holes, China. So Beijing on Thursday criticized a preliminary study by the US researchers suggesting that the novel coronavirus may have been circulating in China since August 2019, calling it a proof of disinformation campaign. So we have thought that till now we had thought that the coronavirus pandemic started in China in the towards the end of 2019, but now researchers at Harvard and Boston had said that the virus might have started as early as in August 2019. So how they studied it? The new paper by researchers at Harvard and Boston universities analyzed the photos of the parking lots at Wuhan hospitals and search trends on the Chinese search engine Baidu. So based on these two statistics, whether the number of vehicles in the parking lot has increased too much. So they have found that in August the a number of vehicles. There was a steep increase in the volume starting in August 2019 at Wuhan hospital parking lots and culminating with a peak in 2019. Also, this data coupled with the search trends, the search about COVID and all, search about coronavirus and all in the Chinese search engine Baidu. So, combining all these statistics, the researchers at Houston and at Harvard and Boston are telling that the pandemic might have started as early as in August. Also there were other conclusions reached by other researchers suggesting that the virus began circulating earlier than the first reported cases at the end of 2019. So if this is true, then China will definitely have to face a lot of actions against it, especially in international organizations like WHO, in case of an impartial probe which is conducted on the origin of the coronavirus pandemic. So as expected, China will keep on uh, criticizing these studies against the studies which try to find the origin of the COVID pandemic. Coming to the next news article, government considering universal basic income, says NHRC, National Human Rights Commission. In its report on human rights in India, the National Human Rights Commission has informed the United Nations Human Rights Council that the recommended implementation of a universal basic income was under examination and active consideration of the center. So, what is this universal basic income? Universal basic income is an unconditional transfer of income by the government to its people. Why it is called universal? Because it is given to everyone. It is given to everyone in the population. That's why it is called universal basic income, as well as it is unconditional. It is not based on any criteria, like there is no criteria of poverty line or any kind of deprivation. So theoretically that is universal income, that is 100% coverage of the population. Now, what is this NHRC? NHRC stands for National Human Rights Commission. It was formed in 1993. It is a statutory body under an act which has been established in 1993. That is Prevention of Human Rights Act, right? So Protection of Human Rights Act, I'm very sorry. So the act is Protection of Human Rights Act of 1993. NHRC is a statutory body. Its headquarters is in New Delhi. And the very important prelims related fact which you have to learn is the composition of National Human Rights Commission. It is chaired by an ex Chief Justice of India or a person who has been a judge of the Supreme Court. Also, there are some ex officio members who include the chairman of the National Commission of Scheduled Castes, Scheduled Tribes, National Commission on Women, Minorities, Backward Caste. Also, commissions related to child rights, and also these are the ex officio members of the National Human Rights Commission. So here what you have to learn is you have to go back to the chapter related to NHRC in Lakshmikant in Polity and try to revise the basics. Also, the UBI. So, continuing to the article, the UBI is seen as a way to further reduce poverty levels with a view to possibly phasing out the existing social protection system in full consultation with all the stakeholders. So, there are other things which are being told in the report. The report also stated that there has been a consensus on the need for increasing budgetary allocation for health and nutrition by the center and the state government. So in yesterday's article, we have seen that the health budget, the budget given to health is only meager 1.3% of the GDP, which is very less, right? So the report also says that the need is to increase the budgetary allocation. It also noted that it had found gaps in policies as compared to obligations under the United Nations Conventions on Rights of Child and had made recommendations to address the same. So it has focused on child rights also. Also, it also told that it is in the process of setting up a committee to monitor the implementation of the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women. So here they are focused on child also, health also, women also, and poverty reduction also. Also, they are also focused on the holistic inclusion of such children in the National Education Policy. The NHRC said that it has expressed concern over the inefficacies in implementation of the Scheduled Castes, Scheduled Tribes, Prevention of Atrocities Act 1989 and the rules of 1995. So this is what the details of the report it submitted to the United Nations Human Rights Council. So we have talked about NHRC as of now. So as a homework, try to go through the basics of about the basic facts of UNHRC, also United Nations Human Rights Council also. Coming to the next news article, India removes export ban on HCQ. HCQ is hydroxychloroquine. So, what is this HCQ? Hydroxychloroquine is an anti-malarial drug which is said to have a positive impact on the on tackling the COVID-19 pandemic. So, there are some conflicts regarding the efficacy of HCQ, but as of now, India has removed the export ban on HCQ. So India lifted the export ban on hydroxychloroquine, the anti-malarial drug touted by the US President Donald Trump as a potential game changer in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. So the US President Donald Trump had continuously supported the use of HCQ as a potential medicine against the COVID-19 pandemic. So, uh, even though the restrictions, export restrictions have been taken off, the manufacturers still have to supply 20% of their production to the domestic market, that is India. Right. So, that condition is still there. The country, the India is a leading exporter of generic medicine across the world, banned the export of the drug, and so earlier it was banned, the export was banned in March as the coronavirus outbreak disrupted the supply chains. So later in April, India had eased some of these restrictions and shipped 50 million tablets of drug to the United States that month. So presently, India has been giving medicines to around 120 plus countries in the world, rightly uh, proving its position as the pharmacy of the world. So India is involving in medical diplomacy throughout the world. So as of now, when most of the countries are looking inward, India has started to look internationally through its medical diplomacy. For example, as we already told, India is exporting HCQ as well as India is exporting paracetamol. So other things which India are doing is India had also sent medical professionals to countries like Nepal, Kuwait and all, Kuwait and Maldives. Also India also is also involved in training the staff of SARC countries, medical staff of the SARC countries. So these are the ways in which India is directly involved in medical diplomacy throughout the world. So this is in contrast. You can from the mains perspective, you can contrast with the efforts of China. First of all, China has behaved arrogantly, aggressively, as well as irresponsibly during this COVID-19 pandemic. The first thing is China is concealing the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, later they tried to project themselves as responsible by exporting PPEs and other medical supplies throughout the world. But what happened is there were cases which said that the China were exporting low quality medical supplies to the world. Uh, so, and so this we have seen when we have imported a lot of rapid antibody tests from China and it was not working properly, right? So here you can see that in the sphere of the medical diplomacy, India has proved itself to a winner compared to China. So this will definitely improve the long term world view, how the world views India, right? Now, coming back to the article, conflicting reports. So, there were conflicting reports of the efficacy of the HCQ, where British scientists had last week said that HCQ is useless at treating COVID-19 patients. Also, there was a Lancet medical journal which said that, which had found that hydroxychloroquine increased the risk of death in COVID-19 patients also. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization is just conducting the trials, and also as of now there is no proper study which is related to the efficacy of HCQ. Anyway, India has removed the export ban on the HCQ with a condition that 20% should be domestic supplies. Coming to the next news article, India reiterates civilizational and cultural ties with Nepal. So we all know that issues are happening between India and Nepal. So recently, Nepal has published a new map where areas of Limpiadura, Kalapani, and Lipu Lake has been shown under the Nepali territory, which actually belongs to the Indian territory. So now, since the map is published, it needs to have a legislative backup. So they have to pass it in the parliament also, Nepal parliament also. So as Nepal prepared to vote on Sunday for a new map amid the Kalapani territorial dispute, the Ministry of External Affairs on Thursday reiterated India's civilizational ties with Nepal. So India doesn't want this thing to happen, right? So India, the official of the Ministry of External Affairs also said that India deeply values its civilizational, cultural, and friendly relations with Nepal. The government of India's assistance for humanitarian development and connectivity projects in Nepal was also remembered by the official. The vote in Nepal's parliament is for the second constitutional amendment, which will give legislative support to the new map. The new map, which I already told you. I'll briefly tell about the origin of the India Nepal issue at the Kalapani area. So there was a in 1816 there was a Treaty of Sigoli which happened between after the Anglo-Nepal War, which happened between British India as well as the Kingdom of Nepal. So as per that treaty, the territory of Nepal will be to the west, to the east of the Kali River, and to the west of Kali River it will belong to India. So that was the deal. But so the deal is still valid, but the confusion is regarding the origin of the Kali River. We all know that rivers doesn't some rivers have distribute tributaries, right? So some Nepal is considering one of its tributary as its origin, whereas India is considering another tributary as its origin. So this is the basis of the conflict. Nepal is telling that Kali River originates at Limpiadura. Limpiadura is actually a place in Uttarakhand. So Nepal says that Kali River originates in Limpiadura. So any area to the east of Limpiadura, that includes Lipu Lake, Pass, Kalapani areas and all, it will belong to Nepal. But India is telling that no, Limpiadura is not the origin of the Kali River, but it is another place in the Kalapani region, which is the present border actually as of now. So that is what the dispute is about. Uh, Nepal has published a map which has said that Limpiadura and all these three areas belong to Nepal. So that is the issue about. Also, some of the other things which were told by the official of the Ministry of External Affairs is related to the report of the US CIRF report. Right, it was a report on international religious freedom for 2009, published by the United States Department of the State. It was a document the official said that it is a document produced for the domestic audience, and he also said that other countries did not have the right to criticize India on religious freedom. So the report had criticized India's religious freedom because of the abolition of Article 370, then the CAA protest. It has also spoke about Sabrimala issue and all, right. So because of that, India's ranking was downgraded, and it was also put as a country of particular concern, which is the lowest ranking in that report. So now India responded, said by telling that other countries did not have the right to criticize India on religious freedom, right. Also, the Indian official also hit out at Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan's social media post offering help to the poor Indian household facing economic distress because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So, see what kind of help Pakistan is doing when they can't even help their own people. They are trying to create issues in India now. So, the Indian official has criticized it anyway. So these are the main takes from the ministry's official spokesperson Anurag Srivastava, his media, his comments, right. So these are the main things which he focused on. He focused on Nepal, he focused on the US report, he focused on Pakistan also. Coming to the next news article, slum population most at risk, says ICMR. So this is a COVID related news. The Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR, on Thursday released the results of the first Sero survey on COVID-19, spread that the urban slum population was the most vulnerable to the spread, followed by urban settlements. So this is very much expected because of the difficulty in maintaining social distancing in the urban slums because the lifestyle is very crowded there. The houses are very crowded, and for example, and a lot of population. The population density is very much higher in slums because of the compact nature of the slums. So, followed by the urban settlements, the ICMR asserted that the country is not in the community transmission phase. So, even though there are being reports that some community transmission might have happened, for example, there is a chance that community transmission might have happened in Assam, and even Kerala has partially acknowledged that community transmission might have happened because the origin of the infection of some of the cases were not traceable. So if a person gets a COVID-19 infection, and if we are not able to trace from where he had got the COVID-19 infection, then that kind of a situation is said to be community transmission, right? So India as of now has denied that community transmission has taken place in the country. Now, coming to the statistics, the risk of spread was 1.09 times higher in urban areas and 1.89 times higher in the urban slums. But the infection fatality rate is very low at 0.08%. So this zero surveillance study was conducted in 83 districts, covering around 28,000 households and 26,000 individuals by ICMR along with other agencies. It also really reveals that 0.73 of the population surveyed showed evidence of past exposure to the SARS-CoV virus 2. So, coming to the COVID related tally, India on Thursday overtook the United Kingdom to become the first country with become the country with the fourth highest incidence of COVID-19. So, earlier it was in the fifth in the number, now it has increased to fourth. So, we can see that India is the cases in India is increasing at a high rate. With a spike of 11,000 new cases in a single day, the tally rose to 2 lakh 97,928, with which includes around 1,42,000 active cases. And also the death toll also rose to 8,497 with a jump of 392 in a single day, last 24 hours. So these are the COVID related news which is happening as of now. Coming to the next news article, the editorial of the day, a better. So this is again a continuation of the COVID related news. So as we all know that the cases are increasing, the total number of discharged people with COVID-19 from the time the first ever case has recorded in India, it has exceeded the number of active cases. It is definitely a positive milestone. So as of now, the discharged patients has increased more than the present active number of cases, which is a good sign. So as of Thursday, a total of 1,46,716 people have recovered, while the number of active cases was 1,42,697. So this is the first time this is happening in the country as a whole, right? So the steady increase in the number of people discharged is to be expected, especially given that the disease is now known to have a case fatality rate that is just about 2.8%. So the fatality is less at 2.8%. So the number of discharged people will be increasing in the coming days, which is a positive sign. Nevertheless, for the various on the front lines and for the people who run the health system in the country, this is one metric that is a direct measure of the success of the interventions. The number of the people who have recovered is increasing, as well as the case fatalities is low, right? So this is a metric for the success of the interventions. However, we have to note that the India has recently revised its discharge policy. So earlier, in order for a patient to be discharged, he had to have two negative tests over 24 hours. But now, if any patient who does not show any symptom for over 3 days is allowed to go home now. And patients who were on critical care require only one negative test to be discharged. So here we can see that the criteria for discharge has been relaxed. Earlier it was two negative tests within 24 hours. Now it's just 3 days without any symptoms. This might be a measure in order to save the number of the tests which are being conducted, right? Anyways, so the discharge policy has been revised, and the same thing has been done by other countries also. So definitely we have to utilize the resources in an efficient manner. The number of tests are not infinite, right? So we have to deploy those number of testing facilities in a better, in an optimal manner. So this discharge policy is expected as the number of cases increase in the country. Also, a discharge is likely to be followed up with home isolation for a period of 7 days or around 2 weeks or something. The threat of this epidemic reaching a peak and overwhelming stretched healthcare resources and facilities is clear and present. In some states, it is possibly already happening, right? So, to so in this scenario, there is a need to distinguish the patients with mild symptoms or the asymptomatic patients from the sick patients, and it is essential to ensure that the health system remains responsive to the people who are really sick, right? So there's definitely a need to now to distinguish between patients also. The mild and asymptomatic patients should be given less care compared to the serious patients, right? Also, adequate monitoring of the home quarantined people should be done, possibly in association with the local bodies and voluntary organization. That is, it is very important to ensure that the people who are home quarantined remains in home, rather than, there are many cases where people escaping out of the home quarantine, which will definitely cause increase in the spread of the virus, right? So the local organization, local bodies like the panchayats and all, as well as the voluntary organizations like the SHGs, the SHGs and all, should ensure that the people who are home quarantined still remains in the home itself. Everything the government does here on must be to allow the recovery rate its reach its natural proportion of the total number of cases, and to keep the case fatality down. So that is what the government has to be doing, which it is rightly doing in the present situation. The recovery rates are increasing, fatality rates are also less. So that is all about the editorial of the day. Coming to the second editorial, back from the brink. So this is related to the issue between LIC issue between India and China. So an agreement reached between India and China on June 6th for a partial disengagement of troops from some of the points of standoff along the line of actual control is a step in the right direction. It is, however, just the first step. A long road ahead is there to restore the status quo prior to China's multiple incursions that began a month ago. So we can see, we have already seen in multiple news articles that China had created issues around multiple points along the LAC. So which all were those points? Like in Ladakh, it was Pangong So Lake. There was Gogra. There was Demchok. There was Galvan Valley, Galvan Nala. Also in Ladakh, Nakula Pass is also there. So these were the areas, multiple points where the China has started incursions into the Indian territory across the LAC. Also, both sides identified 5 locations of conflict in the western sector in Ladakh. A separate ongoing standoff in Nakula in Sikkim was not on the agenda. So, as of now, the talks are focusing only on areas of conflict in Ladakh, whereas the Nakula Pass in Sikkim, there is it is being put aside as of now. There is no talks, there is no progress in the talks as of now in this area. A broad plan has been agreed to hold a series of talks at the lower ranks of colonel, brigadier, and major general at 4 of these points in the coming week to take forward the disengagement process. There, however, appears to be serious differences on Pangong Lake, which may require another level of higher level talks at the corps commander level. So this Pangong Lake, so you might have seen this Pangong Lake in the climax of the Three Idiots movie. So that the climax of the Three Idiots movie happens on the banks, on the shores of the Pangong Lake, right? So this lake is actually divided between, the control of this lake is divided between India and China. Approximately two-third of the lake is under Chinese control and one-third of the lake is under the control of India. So issues are still remaining at serious issues are there in the Pangong Lake. India has made it clear that it will accept nothing less than restoring the status quo, and it will not dilute its build up in the area until and unless China draws down the artillery, bombers, rocket forces, air defense radars, and jammers that it has amassed behind the front lines on its side of the LAC. So India has made its position clear that the status quo should be maintained and everything should be withdrawn, right? So India also so the reason for their incursion, the recent incursion by the Chinese might be the improvements in the infrastructure on the Indian side of the LAC. We have already seen in multiple news articles that India was constructing the DBO, Daulat Beg Oldi Road, DBO road on India side of the LAC. So, if there is one thing that the recent tensions have made it clear, it is the urgent need for better communication to address the strategic mistrust that prevails on both sides of the LAC. Also, Illado is posturing at the top political levels of the Indian leadership with the threats last year to reclaim Aksai Chin didn't help either. So, last year in Parliament, the Home Minister had told regarding reclaiming the Aksai Chin from China. Aksai Chin is a part of Ladakh which is under the control of China. So, this announcement by the Home Minister in the Parliament didn't help much because it had created more fears on the Chinese side. So that's why they might have taken the policy of attack is the best defense, and they try to uh, come into the Indian territory. So both sides must now look ahead what can be done with lessons from the mistakes of the recent past. So that is what this editorial talks about. Now coming to the other articles, in page 6, Gandhi is Mandela's and the kings of today. So this is regarding the racism which is happening in the United States. So this is an excerpt of the speech given by Gopal Krishna Gandhi. You can read this. And coming to another news article in the same page, page 6, a case for quiet diplomacy. So this is again related to the issues which is happening between India and China. Since we have already discussed in the editorial before, we won't be discussing this. So here briefly I'll tell what it is. It says that in foreign diplomacy, and foreign affairs, the need is for quiet diplomacy. That is, the country should ensure that the politicization does not take place. The politicization does not take place. So that is the most important thing which the countries should ensure, right? So if the politicization takes place, then it will be difficult for both the countries should to ensure a proper resolution of the dispute. So that is what the article talks about. You can read about it. So that's all for today's news video, Hindu news analysis. Have a good day. I hope you like the video. Please press the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. Have a great day. Thank you.